أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. So before we begin our talk for today, inshallah, I would just like to thank Allah, yani Alhamdulillah, for what has happened in Palestine. We all heard the news of the ceasefire. The Palestinians deserve more happiness. We are seeing this moment of celebration within them, and that makes you very happy. Though analysts are skeptical, they're saying that this ceasefire might be temporary, but I'm hoping that this ceasefire is permanent, and Allah give these people of Palestine the happiness they deserve, and Allah give all the oppressed around the world and free them from the oppression which they are facing, inshallah. Coming back to our topic, we say that we are going to discuss the issue of Shia-Sunni cooperation within history. As I said last week, and I'm repeating again, that this, in my humble opinion, this Shia-Sunni cooperation and unity cannot be achieved, okay, at a real global level until Shias and Shias unite, until Sunnis and Sunnis unite. Okay? Once these groups unite from within, then that global unity can be achieved. But we will be discussing cooperation at a level, whatever the minimum which has happened in history, to be able to show it as an inspiration that it's possible. This unity is possible if really our intentions are there. If we make up our mind that we want to unite, then Allah will help us through this process. Now, I said before we go through the topic itself, we will need to go through some introductory discussions. One of those discussions, introductory discussions, is why unity? Okay, why should we unite? Why should the Shias and Shias unite? Why should the Sunnis and Sunnis unite? And why should the Shias and Sunnis unite also? So the first reason I gave in the previous discussion was enough fighting. We have fought enough. Not only we have fought enough, others also consider us as barbaric, as people who are just fighting and primitive. So isn't it time for us to wake up and say, enough is enough now. We have fought enough. That was the first reason. The second reason, let me share the screen. The second reason I would like to give is Quran. Okay? The Quran discusses unity. It discusses the Quran promotes unity and tells the Muslim to stay away from disunity and divisions. Okay? So, to just give you an importance, to give you a picture of how important this topic is, I was listening to one of the researchers here in Iran. He's done research on this topic from Tafsir al-Mizan of Allama Tabatabai. He says that Tafsir al-Mizan is 20 volumes, okay? Out of the 20 volumes, he says 15 volumes. Allama Tabatabai discusses the issue of unity, disunity, division, ikhtilaf in 15 volumes. Okay? That shows you how much this this issue is so important to him and the Quran itself. The two-thirds of his tafsir has somehow discussed this issue. Okay, on the other side, we Muslims, okay, have we given importance to this issue? I don't know. I don't know. We are seeing divisions, we are seeing groups inside. Now, to make it clear on the on the onset, that people should not think that I'm now calling up for all the sects to become one, and that was the default position of the Quran, but it didn't happen. We divided into sects and madahib. What I'm calling for now is that, okay, we are divided now into sects. No worries. We have ideological differences. We have differences in belief. What we need to do now is that we should not be celebrating these differences. That is my point I'm trying to make throughout this. And that is what the message of Quran I'm understanding. That we should not be celebrating these differences. Okay? Now, when we celebrate, what do I mean? Notice that we celebrate by calling others all, we call others people who are doomed to go to hell. We call them mushriks, we do takfir of them, we call them kafir. Okay, we this is something which is very common within the Muslims. Why? We consider ourselves as firqatun najiyah, that saved sect, and the others are all firaqul halika. Okay, they are all doomed sects. Inshallah, if we get time in the future, we can discuss this. This is one of the problematic hadith which matnan, okay, textually, this is one of the problematic hadith, but Muslim scholars celebrate it. You will see it being often quoted within our Islamic lectures. And scholars authenticate this hadith also, but it has textual problems. Further than that, the biggest problem is you see that the scholars who have written books on Milal wa Nihal, the sects and denominations, they are competing with each other. If you have read books on Milal wa Nihal, you will understand what I'm saying. That they're competing with each other to make the Muslim sects and the Islamic sects reach 73 somehow, even if they're not. Somehow they want to make it reach to prove that what the Prophet said was true. Instead of saying that, no, this is a problematic hadith, we are trying to make sure that that number we can reach to. Okay? This is what I mean by celebrating. We celebrate our differences. Not only we call each other mushriks, which I will show examples. We do takfir, we are aware of it. Examples will come as we go through. Okay? We call the other group anjasu min al-kilab wal-khanazir. Very strange. Okay? They're impure than the dogs and the pigs. We say they're worse than the Yahud wal Nasara. These are terminologies being used. Okay? This is what shows you that we are celebrating these divisions rather than being sad about these, being sorrowful about these divisions. Somebody relaxes a lot. He says, no, okay, I'm not going to do takfir, I'm not going to call people mushrik. So what they do is they do tafsiq there. So they call others all fasiq. Okay? They call them ahlul bid'ah. These terminologies, where do they come from? Okay, who gives us the permission to label others with these labels? You discuss your point, okay? You discuss theoretically and say, this is what I've reached to this conclusion. Takfir and I don't know, calling others tafsir and all that, leave it on God. Okay? So this is what I mean by we are celebrating. Now, somebody relaxes a lot and says, okay, and this happens within sects a lot. So, within one sect itself, you will see that people now call others deviant, misguided, dhal, and mudil, and I don't know, he is misguiding others and all that. These are terminologies which we see, and this is where we're celebrating these differences and we're seeing that we ourselves are the ones who are guided and everybody else is misguided. Okay. Now look at the Quranic worldview. Is Quran endorsing this kind of understanding or no? Quran is altogether sharing another worldview altogether. So I'm going to share a few verses, as I mentioned them several verses in the Quran discussing this issue. I'm going to share a few. And some of the verses I'll share are in the context of a war, so I'm aware of that. But the verses are so relevant to our situation today that if you apply it to our situation, it actually fits in into what the Muslim Ummah is going through. And scholars do mention that these are general verses, though they're related to a war, but they are the message is very general and universal. So the first verse which I want to share is this verse, Surah Anfal, verse number 46. Again, this is a war. This is a verse which is in the context of war. But the verse is so beautiful, it's so relevant to what we are going through today. So the verse starts, وَأَطِيعُ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. The criteria is given initially. That obey Allah and His Messenger. You come out of this, notice what happens. وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا. Okay? The moment you come out from the obedience of Allah and the Prophet, you end up into tanazur. You start disputing. And this is what Allah is saying. Don't dispute. Don't quarrel. Don't fight with each other. Okay? Why fatafshalu, O Muslims? You will become fashil. So the translators would translate is that you will lose your heart. The actual meaning of fashil is that when you lose that morale in within, okay, when you lose that inside motivation, that is called fashil. Okay, it's a failure. When you have lost it in within, now you are not in a mood to do anything. Okay, and that is what is a failure in the terminology of Quran. Now, the point I'm trying to make is here. وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ. O Muslims, if you fight and you quarrel with each other, not only will you lose that inner morale and inside motivation, inner motivation, وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ. Your rih, your wind will go away. A beautiful statement. Okay? Your power, your strength, your dominion, you will go away. This is exactly what we are seeing in the Muslim Ummah today. The Muslim strength has gone away. There was one time we Muslims would have a golden age and the Western world was in the dark ages. Today it's become bil'aks, okay? It's become opposite. That we are in the dark ages and they're having their golden age. Our strength has gone away. What they did, the Zionists did what they did, they wanted, they did in Palestine. We couldn't do anything as Muslim entity. We had to wait for Trump to come in and come and say, now I need a ceasefire. We can't do anything. Where is the strength? Where is the power? Okay? Now, I'm not trying to share this message as a message of despair. Rather than it's a message of saying that we learn that we have fought enough. Now let's unite to be able to gain this strength again. And we can do it. The Quran promises. What does it say? It says, wasbiru. Okay? The Quran doesn't deny differences. It says differences are going to exist forever. Okay? But a person has to live, to learn to live with differences. So if you agree, beautiful. But if you don't agree to agree, then you agree to disagree. Okay? You live together, work together, and have patience with each other. You know, if I can give an example, how do we live in a marriage life? Not all husbands and wives are inclined towards one thought. But what do they do? Okay? One of the things you do is patience. Okay? You learn to have patience of each other, understand each other, work with each other. You have the differences. The differences are there. Okay? Then Allah says, Inna Allah ma'as sabirin. And this is what we are lacking today, that Allah is with the sabirin. If we unite, and have this patience, then only Allah will be with us. The reason Allah's mercy, the special mercy, is away from us, we Muslims are disunited, it's because there's no sabr, there's no unity. Okay? So, under this verse, the scholars and mufassirin have subtle points. They're simple points, but they're subtle and they have meanings in them. So, for example, Allama Tabrasi in his Majma' al-Bayan, he says, do not dispute. What does dispute end up to? He says, for such discord will lead to cowardice in the face of the enemy and weaken you in fighting them. And this is what we're seeing today in the Muslim Ummah. Okay? We Muslims have become totally afraid. Totally. We don't take a decision until someone else decides somewhere else. This is what the system we're living in. Decisions for us, how we live, how we dress up, how we talk, how our family lives, decisions are being taken somewhere else. And why is that? There's a sense of inferiority in within us because of somewhere else. Okay? So Allama Tabrasi says that then he goes on to explain that wind here is a metaphor, and this is a metaphor which we all understand. They say that wind is in your favor or wind is against you. So for those of you who cycle, you notice that when you're cycling against the wind, how is it hard to reach to the destination you want to reach? There's a lot of struggle you have to do. Sometimes you also give up by saying that there's so much wind going on. But if the wind is in your favor, notice how beautiful this trip becomes and this travel of yours and the cycling of yours becomes. Yeah, this is exactly what Allah is talking about. وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ, you fight, the wind will go against you. You don't fight, you unite, the wind and the strength of Allah will come with you, and you will be able to become that power again. Some of the Sahaba understood this. The meaning of wind here, they say it is the meaning is rihun nasr, okay, the wind of victory. So if you want to get the wind of victory, then وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا, don't fight with each other. فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ, okay, your wind of victory will go away. This is Allama Tabrasi. Sheikh Ibn Ashur in his Tahrir wa Tanweer, he also has a subtle point. He says, notice, disputes lead to failure. That's fashil. Okay, why? Because they steer anger. And we can see this in families. We can see this, that when there's disputes which are unsortable, they lead to anger. And this anger then creates what? Divisions. And this division now doesn't allow this family to work together. That's exactly what the Muslim Ummah is happening. Okay? These divisions have led us to not work together. Then he makes a point which is very important. He says this causes people to focus on protecting themselves from one another. That means every group is busy protecting one another. So I am busy, God forbid, protecting my own people of my own group. That other person is busy protecting the person from his own group. And the other person is busy protecting people from his own group. That's exactly what's happening in the Islamic Ummah today. Every group is busy protecting its own people. Okay. However much right the opposite person might be, we will still not yet listen. We are not ready to listen and sit down with the opposite person. But my person, who might be even wrong, I'm ready to listen, but the opposite person might be right, I'm not ready to listen. This is exactly what's happening. Okay? Then he explains the same issue of wind. This is one verse. A second verse. This verse is about Fir'aun, but the message is so prevalent of this verse. You see, when Musa alayhi salam escapes with the people of Egypt from the oppression of Fir'aun by the night, Fir'aun gets the news, he sends his people to find out in the cities what's happening, and then he makes this statement, okay, describing the people of Musa. Notice his description, and this is exactly a description which I believe the Western leaders have for the Muslims today, okay, and the Muslim leaders. إن هؤلاء لشرذمة قليلون. Okay, in translation, it doesn't make you understand. They are a small group, they are a small gang. But look at what Imam Razi, Imam Fakhr Razi, in his Tafsir al-Kabir explains this. He says, what is the meaning of shardima? So he gives an example. He says, look at, the Arabs would say, thawbun sharadhim. Thawbun sharadhim means a cloth which is worn and worn and worn and worn. Now it's totally torn out and it's become pieces. Okay? So it's not only worn, it's torn out altogether, it's become into pieces and thus become useless, insignificant. That's how Fir'aun was thinking about the people of Musa. Now come to the Muslim Ummah today. How do the Western leaders perceive us, especially the Muslim leaders? لَشِرْذِمَةٌ قَلِيلُونَ. You are not only torn out, you are not divided into pieces, you are totally worn out, you become insignificant altogether. Okay, you notice small clothes which are totally torn into pieces are useless, they're insignificant, they're of no use. That's exactly the mentality the enemy has about us today, that we are totally useless, insignificant. No decision can be made without the powers and the superpowers saying yes. Okay? So Imam Razi goes on by saying that it's also possible by small he intended to mean humiliation and lowliness. So we're being humiliated, and that's exactly what we are going through. This 15, 16 months of massacre in Palestine showed us how we Muslims were humiliated. Thus, it's time to wake up and say, it's enough now. It's enough humiliation. We need to stand up. Okay? This is verse number 2. Verse number 3. And this is where I come and say that I don't know. We as Muslims, I don't know, are we reading a different Quran or are we all reading the same Quran? We're looking at the worldview of the Quran and looking at our understanding and the way we are acting. It seems like we are reading a different Quran altogether. As I said in the beginning, that we Muslims are celebrating our differences. And on the contrary, the Quran comes and portrays by saying no. It says that divisions and disunity and hatred and enmity between each other is a punishment. It's not something to celebrate upon. It's something to cry upon that Allah has punished us. Okay? So look at this verse. This is Allah talking about a punishment which He gave to the people, to the Nasara, to the Christians. Okay? The reason is they didn't follow the commands of Allah. Allah says, فَأَغْرَيْنَا بَيْنَهُمُ الْعَدَاوَةَ وَالْبَغْضَاءَ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. Okay? We stirred up enmity and hatred amongst them until the day of judgment, not only temporarily, but till the day of judgment. The divisions and divisions will last till the day of judgment. And this is what we're seeing in Christianity today. They're divided big time. There's so many denominations within. So a person requires a small search only and see the denominations within Christianity. The famous one, the Catholics, they also divided. You have the Protestants, they are divided into 7, 8 denominations further. Okay? Then you have the Orthodox. So, for example, the Protestants, you have the Lutherans, you have the Anglicans, you have the Baptists. All these are under Protestants. Okay? And the list goes on. And then you have the Orthodox. They are also divided, also Eastern, and I don't know what, they also divided. And then you have the Jehovah's Witness. Okay, you have the Mormons. I don't know, the groups continue. There's so many till date, till date. Okay, they divided big time. Why? Allah promises that. Now, this division started at that time. So, Allama Tabrasi in his Majma' al-Bayan mentions of three groups which were divided of Christians at that time. So, you have the Nestorians, the Jacobites, and the Melkites. Okay, three main groups which were divided. For those who've studied more, they can maybe explain more about these groups also. But what is disturbing is here. Allama Tabrasi says that one sect and one group and the leader and the leader would tell his followers يَأْمُرُ بَعْضُهُمْ أَنْ يُعَادِي بَعْضًا. They would order and command each other that Baba hate the other group. This is exactly what we are seeing today. One group is hating the other group. Another group is hating the other group. They think they're saved. Others are all doomed. Hate them. They are Ahlul Bid'ah, Ahlul Shirk, and Ahlul Kufr, and Ahlul. God knows. Okay? No, وَأَن يَكْفُرَ بَعْضَهُمْ بَعْضًا. Okay? They would do takfir of each other. This is exactly what we're seeing today in the Islamic Ummah today. Okay? Now, look at the Quranic worldview and look at our worldview. We're celebrating these differences and these divisions, while Allah is talking it as a punishment. Okay? Further than that, Allah becomes even more harder. Allah, if this verse doesn't wake us up, I don't know which verse will do. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيَعًا لَسْتَ مِنْهُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ. O Prophet, Ya Allah. If there's one thing we are looking forward is to meeting the Prophet on the Day of Judgment and being with him. Okay? You go on the Day of Judgment to meet the Prophet, and then the Prophet tells you, I disown you, I don't want you. لَسْتَ مِنْهُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ. I don't want you. Why? إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ. So the Quran says that those who separate, they split the religion into pieces and into groups. Oh Prophet, you don't have anything to do with them. You will have nothing to do with them. It means they are not part of you. Okay? So a question now comes in as that somebody might ask that farraqu here is a past tense. Oh, it's referring to the polytheists. Okay, it's referring to the mushrikeen only. So Allama Tabatabai in his Tafsir al-Mizan, he says, Baba, don't think of that. He says, but it only indicates the occurrence of this quality, whether in the past, the present, or the future. We should be awake. We should be cognizant that we are not being divided. We are not divided. So then he goes on. The statements of Allama are also very hard to handle. He says here the Prophet is separated from those who deviated in religion and divided into sects, where each sect follows a different leader. If you notice, the Quran came and put up a criteria, Ati Allah wa Rasulahu. What every sect and group has done is follow my leader, and everybody has made a peer and a murad and a murid, and it's like followers over followers. We just want followers for ourselves. We're not concerned about others at all. So Allama then goes on to say that Lasta minhum fi shay means what? O Prophet, you have nothing to do with them. He says they are not following the religion that you propagate, O Prophet, and are not on the same path that you pursue. Harsher than this? That means the Prophet can come and say, you didn't follow my religion altogether. All these years I was thinking I'm a Muslim, I'm following Islam. Now the Prophet comes and tells me that, but لَسْتَ مِنْهُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ. You're nothing. You did nothing. Okay? And why? Because we divided. Okay? Allama then goes on. So What is the path of the Prophet then? So he goes on to say that those who divided left the path of the Prophet. What is the path of the Prophet? He says, on not on your path, which is founded on unity, solidarity, and avoidance of division. Okay? So the path of the Prophet is the path of unity and solidarity and being together. So the day we divide, we have hatred for each other, we have enmity for each other, we just want to condemn others to hellfire. That's the day we should realize, lasta minhum fi shay. The Prophet has disowned us altogether. Okay? So Allama Tabatabai then feels that I need to repeat this, that people should not feel that this verse is for the mushrikeen and the polytheists. So he says, no, it should be clear that there's no evidence to restrict this verse's meaning to any particular group. Don't restrict it to the polytheists also only. It refers to the denominations and sects in this nation of Islam. The message is universal. Okay? Now it becomes harsher and it becomes harder also. وَلَا تَكُونُوا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. O Muslims, don't be like. So the verse doesn't say وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالْمُشْرِكِينَ. Okay? Don't be and don't imitate the mushrikeen. Don't be like them. No. So, Muslims, we are worried together today, and I don't want to get into this fiqh discussion, but you will see we are worried that, oh, the person did that, he imitated the kuffar. He did that, he imitated the mushrikeen. He did war that, I don't know, he imitated the mushrikeen and the kuffar. We are boiled down to these discussions, while Quran is a bigger issue to deal with, and we are hardly worried. وَلَا تَكُونُوا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Don't be amongst the mushrikeen. So if you wanted to be if you want to be counted amongst the mushrikeen, then see what is the quality of the mushrikeen. مِنَ الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيَعًا. The job and the duty and the biggest quality of the mushrikeen was what? They would split into groups. They would divide their religion into groups and sects and have conflicts and divisions in within them. Now it doesn't stop there. كل حزب بما لديهم فرحون. Not only do they divide, now once they're divided, they feel that every group is happy with their own success, apparently. Everybody is happy with their own group. Everybody else is condemned to hellfire. We are the only ones. We are the successful ones. Firqatun Najiyah. This is what we are discussing, yeah? You see the hadith being quoted now and again. Firqatun Najiyah, Firaqul Halika. All this is what? The Quran is this. كل حزب بما لديهم فرحون. Everyone is happy, thinking every group is happy, thinking that they are the ones who are saved. Others are all doomed. So Allama Tabatabai then goes on to say that those who split their religion explains the nature of the polytheists. Can you see this? And that's why the Quran says, وَلَا تَكُونُوا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Okay? If you want to see and understand what the polytheists used to do, is that defining them by their most specific feature in their religion, and that is they're divided in their religion into different sects and grounds. One of the biggest qualities and specific qualities of the mushrikeen was the divided. They were divided into groups and sects and divisions. Okay? With each one exalting their own religion. This is worse. And this is where I say we're celebrating. Okay? We have reached a place where we celebrate our own somehow success and we think everybody else, we doom them to fire of hell. Yeah? Now, these were a few verses I shared with you to be able to, there are more verses, and a person just needs to search in the Quran and see how Allah describes and what's the worldview of the Quran. So now, why divisions? In the Quran, I found out two main reasons. Okay, there There are minor reasons, but there are two main reasons. One is politicians dividing us. Okay, so Quran discusses inna fir'auna ala fil ard wa ja'ala ahlaha shi'a. This is in Surah Qasas, yeah? What's the job of a politician? Divide and rule. The moment they divide, they can rule better. And this is something the British didn't invent it. Yeah, it was there in memorial. So Allah discusses and says Fir'aun did this, and that's exactly what we see with politicians today. Okay, now I can't speak to the politicians, nor do I have access to the politicians, but I can speak to the other group, and that is the group of the ulama and the scholars. Okay, notice this verse. Wallahi, it's one of the harshest, again, verses when you look at it, especially for us who are studying in the Islamic seminary. You feel like this is talking to us directly to us. Okay, وَمَا تَفَرَّقُوا. They didn't disunite, they didn't divide themselves, they didn't become groups. إِلَّا مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمُ. They divided, they did not divide into sects and into groups, except after knowledge had come to them. Talking about the ulama. Okay? The ulama get the knowledge and still insist on dividing. So the focus now is not on truth. The focus is myself and my group. Why the Quran says بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُمْ. The insistence is on division because there's baghi now going on. Okay, they want to, it's not only they have the knowledge that the opposite might be true, or at least they have the knowledge that they need to respect and tolerate and at least understand the other side's opinion. No, they do baghi. Okay, so Allama Tabatabai says baghi means jealousy or enmity. Okay, so this is done out of jealousy and enmity. But the meaning of baghi, so Ibn Faris in his Mu'jam Maqais al-Lugha, he's one of the famous lexicographers. Inshallah, we plan, if Allah gives us the tawfiq, later we plan to discuss synonyms in the Quran. I have not seen any English lectures on this topic. The reason I find it important is if you understand the words of the Quran. Now, the quickest way of understanding the words of Quran is if you understand 5-6 words which have one meaning, one similar meaning. So you have understood 6 words in one word. Okay, that's why I'm stressing on synonyms rather not on every word. So, inshallah, we plan to have lectures on that if Allah gives us the tawfiq. One of the discussions which we will inshallah explain there is that there's a difference between lexicographers. Some lexicographers believe that an Arabic word has a root word, yeah? So every word returns back to this root word. Some lexicographers believe that these root verbs have one single meaning only. So every word stemming from this root verb has that primary meaning is there in within it. And then it has its small differences. But the primary meaning is there with all the words within it. Some scholars like Ibn Faris differ. They say no, words, root verbs can have multiple meanings. So it can have 2 meanings, it can have 3 meanings, it can have even more meanings. Okay, so for baghi, inshallah, we'll explain it further if we have the tawfiq to go through those sessions. For baghi, he says aslan. There are 2 meanings. There are 2 root verbs for this. Okay, one is seeking something. So if you see in the Quran, there's ibtigha'a wajhi rabbi. Okay, وَمَن يَبْتَغُ. So ibtigha, the word ibtigha in the Quran, okay, is pointing towards this meaning, that you seek something. This is one meaning. Now, when we come explain it further, some people say, no, that doesn't have two meanings, it has a single meaning, we'll explain. But Ibn Faris says, no, one meaning is seeking something. So you seek the pleasure of God, ibtigha'a mardatillah, for example, okay? You are seeking the pleasure of God. The second meaning, he says, is a type of corruption and fasad. So the Arabs would say, baghiyul matar, okay? When the rain falls excessively, they say baghiyul matar, okay? Or a wound which has excessively deteriorated, okay? It has become very bad. That's what the Arabs would call baghiya. So when fasad reaches rebellion, also is called baghi because of this. When fasad reaches the level of rebellion, okay, Ya Ali taqtuluka al-fi'atul baghiya. The Prophet said about uh, Ammar, sorry. Ammar taqtuluka al-fi'atul baghiya. The rebellious group will kill you. These people exceed the limits now. Okay, so exactly what Allah is talking about when it comes to this disunity. So when Allah talks about it, He says, وَمَا تَفَرَّقُوا إِلَّا مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمُ بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُمْ. They have excessive hatred and enmity towards each other, and that's how they separate and divide. And this is where you see this, yeah? The application, you see it in the Muslim Ummah today. We send people to hellfire, we send people to, we are ready to do everything with the other group but our own group. Yeah, this is what's happening. Now, Zamakhshari in his Al-Kashaf makes a very important point. These are subtle points, again, simple points, but subtle in its meaning. He says the disagreement of one sect with the other is nothing but of jealousy and for gaining leadership and worldly gains. Notice, every group wants to become the leader and they want to gain. So in today's language, you have likes, yeah, and the likes and the dislikes. Everybody wants to get the likes for their own channel and their own that thing, and they want others to go down. And each group gaining followers. This is the generation of likes and dislikes. This is exactly how the Quran is describing division. Okay, now finally, I want to finish with this and one statement from Imam Ali alayhi salam. So, what's the Quranic solution? People become jealous, and out of jealousy, people become divided. What's the Quranic solution? Notice Allah talks, this is with the Christians, yeah? This is the people of Ahlul Kitab, okay, of that time. The people of the book of that time wanted the Muslims to become and follow their religion. Okay, majority of them would like Muslims to not become Muslims, and they would want them to follow their religion. Why? حسدا من عند أنفسهم. Okay, this was inner envy, this hasad, this jealousy which was going on. This was stopping them from seeing others seeing the truth. Okay, they wanted them not to go towards the truth, rather they wanted them to follow their path, even if it's wrong. Now notice, this is the Quranic theme which comes in repeatedly. من بعد ما تبين لهم الحق. So in some other places we saw من بعد ما جاءهم العلم. من بعد ما تبين لهم الهدى. Okay? This is a theme repeated in the Quran, that truth became clear, guidance became clear, knowledge came to them. Still they persisted in the division. They still persisted in their ways. Okay? Muslims, what are you supposed to do? When you Muslims now are divided, hasadan min indi anfusihim. There's envy with each other now. What do? Fa'fu, forgive each other. Wasfahu, okay? Turn away from each other. Turn away from these people who are promoting division. Turn away from them. Forgive them. Hatta ya'ti Allahu bi amri. Leave it on Allah. And this is where I come and say, leave it on Allah. Why are we doing takfir? Why are we doing tafsiq? Why are we calling others mushrik? Why are we? It's not our job. حتى يأتي الله بأمره. Allah will come with His command and His judgment. Allah will decide. Okay? And finally, so that was number one. فَعْفُوا وَاصْفَحُوا. Okay? Forgive and turn away. Leave, let them speak. Those who want to divide, let them divide. We focus on unity. We focus on doing work together. The final statement from Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali in Nahj al-Balagha. So Imam Ali for Shias, we follow him as an Imam. We've forgotten him. Strangely, this message of Imam Ali has been forgotten. For the Sunnis, for my Sunni brothers, he is not only from the Khulafa al-Rashidun, okay, he's one of the best, if not the best companion of the Prophet. Okay, he's the fourth Khalifa. Okay, he's from the Ashra Mubashara. Okay, he's from those 10 ones. Again, this hadith by itself requires discussion, but he's from those 10 ones who have been promised Jannah. What happened? We have forgotten this man and his message. Look at how he's dealing with how he deals with Khawarij. Okay, this is a topic by itself. Some scholars have discussed it. If you go on YouTube, you can search, you can get Sunnis and Shias have discussed this issue. If we learn how Imam Ali dealt with the Khawarij, wallahi, our life will change. The way we perceive our Muslim brothers will change. Okay, Imam Ali alayhi salam is looking for the smallest reason to unite. So one of the things which happened was that when Imam went to fight the Khawarij, now notice Khawarij are people who are condemned by the Prophet, huh? And that is why in the Sunni literature and the Shia literature, both condemn Khawarij. Some scholars even go to the level of consider them the kafir, okay, the Khawarij. Okay. But look at how Imam Ali perceives it. He's looking for that small reason of uniting. Now, people came to Imam Ali. Imam Ali was prolonging this war. He wasn't going to the battlefield, rather talking, inshallah, some other time we can explain what actual steps Imam took before the war took place. He was tolerating, he didn't go to war. And people came to him as like, we fought during the time of the Prophet, we straight went to war. What is happening with you? Why can't we go to this war now? So look at what Imam says. ولكن إنما أصحابنا أصبحنا نقاتل إخواننا في الإسلام. These are our brothers in Islam. Khawarij were considered kafir in many scholarly works, but Imam looks for a reason and makes them Muslims. Okay, he makes them Muslims. He's looking for a small reason. Now, I want to clarify this that this doesn't mean that we go fight the non-Muslims of today. Kufr in the Quranic terminology has its own meaning. Okay, so when Imams discuss Islam and Kufr in those times, they had specific meanings they're intending. Okay, doesn't mean that we go today and okay, these are not Muslims and we go fight them. No, rather, I'm the day I'm hoping that we can reach to that. Not only we Muslims now unite, we unite as ikhwanana fil, what do you say? We should be brothers in humanity, fil insaniya, okay, if you want to call it that way. We are brothers in humanity. Okay, I'm hoping to see that day that we human beings unite, we leave aside our differences and unite and we agree to disagree with our differences. So Imam is looking for a small reason, and that is what we are trying to call, giving this message. Imam goes on further. He says, even if we find any way by which Allah has told us to come together. If we find any way which will unite us, Imam says we would accept it and we would give up everything else. So, any small reason you give me that we should unite and not go to this battlefield and fight with each other, I will take it. And on the contrary, we don't look for these small reasons to unite. We make it small reasons make us fight today. Somebody spoke about this, you say, oh, okay, Shias. Somebody spoke this, Sunnis. Oh, I don't know who, followers of who, followers of who. Wallahi, is this Islam? Well, I don't know. Okay. In conclusion, the second point I made, I'm sorry, I thought I will complete these discussions much earlier, but it's taking time. There's some points I need to make. In conclusion, I would just like to say this much, that Quran has a worldview of uniting us. And unfortunately, we Muslims are in a deep sleep of celebrating our divisions. Let's wake up, study the Quran and the worldview of the Quran, and inshallah we unite together. It's not late. Time is still there for us to unite, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, inshallah.